flesh and blood to walk between dimensions. Between our world and theirs.
Happy Halloween, guys! It's me, the Fire Brothers. I'm alone, like always. And today I'm talking about Cliffjumper, and more specifically, a really crazy theory that I stumbled across, which originally I didn't thought much of. I kind of laughed at it at first. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat, you know, it's a fun little thing. But the more I started looking into it, I'm like, what the f? There's actually legitimate evidence for this theory. And yeah, we're talking about Cliffjumper being alive in the afterlife, fighting Unicron's hordes of undead like the Doomslayer. I am not making this up. And to be honest, even if this is not true, which it probably isn't, but it's a fun little thing that I like discussing, this is the most interesting thing that Hasbro has ever done with Cliffjumper, or the fans, I should say. And that's very sad. My boy Cliffjumper keeps getting unlucky in life, and even in the afterlife, he can't catch a break. So the crux of this theory comes from an Iceberg video I was watching, which, you know, I was just fishing for ideas for Transformers topics, especially disturbing ones for Halloween. And I mean, Transformers and horror is not something that, you know, go along together that well. Horror doesn't seem to be a topic that Hasbro's interested in at the moment, unless you mean in the comics, because the comics are filled with some nightmare fuel stuff. But anyways, the whole thing is that after Cliffjumper died in Transformers Prime at the hands of Starscream, and he was later revived using Dark Energon, this theory goes into a line that a lot of people, like first time they heard it, they didn't pay too much attention to. But when you apply the context of that particular line to this theory, then this starts to make more sense. In the Transformers movie Terrorcons Rising, when Megatron first encounters Unicron in the movie, he asks Unicron if he's alive and his spark has joined the Allspark. And Unicron replies with no, meaning that at the beginning of the movie, Megatron's actually dead, yet his soul cannot go into the Allspark because Dark Energon flowed through his veins. Unicron's blood is preventing Megatron's soul from going back to the Allspark, meaning that he's stuck in this limbo, in this Unicron world. And of course, you know, like much like what happens in the actual film, Unicron possesses Megatron, then, you know, his soul eventually ends up being trapped in like the container of the Allspark at the end of the movie. But I want to go back to that line that Unicron said. Because Dark Energon flowed through his veins, Megatron cannot join the Allspark. And may I remind you that during the final battle between the Autobots and Decepticons during the episode Deadlock, at no point did Megatron use Dark Energon during that fight. He used it a lot during the first couple of seasons of Transformers Prime, but eventually he kinda just stopped using it just cause, you know, of the way his relationship with Unicron went down the drain. He didn't want to rely on it. Even in the series finale, he doesn't have Dark Energon at present on his systems. Yet, despite this, when the movie begins, his soul cannot join because he had Dark Energon in the past. Now, after looking back at some of the earlier episodes of Transformers Prime, I think I know why this is the case. I swear I'm getting to Cliffjumper, but this is crucial to understand the rest of this, okay? At the beginning, Megatron really can't control Dark Energon until he reaches this state called symbiosis, in which Dark Energon flows naturally through his veins. He basically has full control over it. Some of you guys may remember, but Starscream also went through the same thing, where he was able to sense Skyquake awakening from the dead, and even able to control it to some degree. Though Starscream was much more inexperienced with the use of Dark Energon than Megatron was. So it looks like this concept of people not being able to join the Allspark when they die seems to be the case only when they reach this state of symbiosis, basically having the Dark Energon shard being inserted into their sparks. Because as we know, being in proximity to Dark Energon doesn't seem to have this effect of preventing you to become one with the Allspark, because plenty of times throughout the series, Optimus Prime suffered from the exposure of Dark Energon being too close to it. And eventually he was able to join the Allspark and, you know, eventually reach the afterlife of the Primes. So it looks like Dark Energon only prevents you from reaching the afterlife if you actually insert it into someone's chest. Now we're gonna get into Cliffjumper and why this applies to him and his like very sad afterlife. The theory goes that because Cliffjumper had Energon inserted into him, he can become one with the Allspark. But now, I know what you guys are thinking, but fire, Cliffjumper died before having Dark Energon inserted into him. And yes, while that is true, we need to remember something. Dark Energon brings people back from the dead. The thing about Dark Energon and the Terrorcons in general is Terrorcons are not zombies. Yes, I mean, granted, they act like zombies, but Terrorcons are not as mindless as you think. When Megatron first revives them, a lot of them are able to use weapons and go toe-to-toe with Ratchet and Optimus Prime momentarily. Granted, because of their decayed, physique, a lot of them, get taken care of pretty quickly. But there is some, intelligence going on there. They're smart enough to use weapons. And if that wasn't enough, we see instances where Terrorcons are seen as particularly intelligent individuals. When Skyquake gets revived, a lot of people might take the ending scene of that episode as just a joke. Oh, Skyquake can't put his arm back because it doesn't fit, it's not the right, it's not the right arm. But he does it anyways, and he's aware that the arm doesn't fit and throws it away. The Terrorcons from the episode 3 seem to be incredibly smart. Terrorcon Breakdown is able to perform stealth kills on many Viacon troopers that were just roaming the hallways. Arachne becomes a Terrorcon by the end of the episode, and she seems to retain a lot of her intelligence. Now, I know that the Terrorcons from the episode 3 might, be considered a bit different because of the whole synthetic energon, incident. And while that might be the case, even if we ignore that and just look solely at Terrorcons that we've seen throughout the series, a lot of the Terrorcons seem to display a bit of intelligence. When Cliffjumper first gets revived, his first instinct is to brutally attack Viacon troopers. Something that the actual Cliffjumper, where he was, himself, would have done regardless. It's like instinctive. And also, the Cliffjumper that got revived is very different than the other Terrorcons that Megatron revives. These Terrorcons are old, and Cliffjumper is, I know this sounds morbid, a fresh cadaver, much like Arachnid, The whole thing about being a Terrorcon is that you're out of Energon. Dark Energon now flows through your veins and you're hungry for Energon. That's the whole reason why Arachnid was, asking her servants to line up so she could devour their Energon. So there is a clear difference between fresh Terrorcons and, old Terrorcons. The Terrorcons still seem to, in some way, retain their intelligence. Hell, even in Predacons Rising, the undead Predacon army can use their dragon fire despite, being an ability that for all intents and purposes is very instinctive for Predacons, kind of like almost breathing or, reaching out for an object with your hand. If these guys were mindless, I mean, they were mindless because they were under the control of Unicron, but they have enough intelligence to the point where they can strategize. When fighting the Predacons, they overwhelm them. They even spread it out when they start using their dragon fire against them. So the Terrorcons are not as mindless as people think. There's actually some intelligence there. Like if they retain certain memories or abilities from their previous lives. Now, how does this apply to Cliffjumper? Well, here's the tricky part of the argument. When Cliffjumper gets revived by Dark Energon, do we consider that to be Cliffjumper, reviving, or do we consider it as like, just a cadaver moving on its own? As we all know, the sparks are the souls of the Transformers. The sparks are not just like the heart or like the brain. Even if you destroy the brain with a Terrorcon, they can still keep coming at you. So, it's not like with a regular zombie where you shoot the head and then the body just falls down. When it comes to Dark Energon, it seems to be more of a spiritual thing. Just by having Dark Energon, Megatron was able to commune with Unicron. In a way, Unicron is also kind of a spiritual being, because his soul can, go out of his body and, he could possess Megatron. So the way Dark Energon works is a bit more on the magical side of things. I know that's a bit weird to say in a franchise about mostly giant robots fighting each other using technology, but Unicron is a whole different beast. Tell me something, when Optimus Prime died, and yes, Optimus Prime actually did die before Smokescreen used the Forged Solus Prime to revive him. If a Transformers die and they come back, would you consider that their soul also comes back? It's like if in the movies, when Optimus Prime first dies and he gets revived later in Revenge of the Fallen. Tell me, would you consider, Optimus Prime as, getting his soul back, like his soul's back from the dead or whatever, not that he's been repaired by the Matrix, or would you consider consider Optimus Prime kind of like a whole new entity, kind of like Galvatron is to Megatron. You see where this gets complicated? Dark Energon causes madness. It causes people to go insane. And it's not an instant fix like something like the Matrix from the movies or even the Omega Lock from the series. Dark Energon goes directly for the soul. And it got stated to actually revive the dead. Meaning that everyone who dies and gets revived by Dark Energon basically comes back, but they come back crazed and they're not really themselves because of the effect of Dark Energon. It's tethered to Unicron's will. Unicron's whole purpose is chaos. The Terrorcons instinctively, when they're not in the control of anyone, their first instinct is to destroy all life. Whether they be Cybertronian or, anyone else, as long as there's life, they need to extinguish it. Skyquake, who was not being controlled by anyone, and basically is a, Energon-hungry Terrorcon. Despite, the humans not having any Energon in them, his first instinct was to kill them, basically snuff them of life. So in a way, you could actually argue that when a Terrorcon gets revived, it's in fact, the same person they were before, their soul comes back to them. So this theory honestly depends on how you view the concept of Transformers reviving. Like, if Cliffjumper comes back by a Dark Energon, does his soul get, taken straight from the Wall of Allspark and just goes back to his body? Does Optimus Prime in Revenge of the Fallen, when he gets revived, does his soul get taken from, the afterlife? He comes back to his body? It's not like in The Walking Dead where, the zombies come back to life because the brain reactivates and goes into this instinctive hunger mode. In there, you could say, oh yeah, it's just the brain, there's no spiritual, mumbo jumbo going on. But in here, the spark is a spiritual component. It has been a spiritual component ever since the early beginnings of the franchise. So here you can actually do say that the soul gets corrupted by Dark Energon, meaning that when Cliffjumper gets revived and killed again, his spark can no longer go back to the old spark because Unicron is blocking him because he had Dark Energon corrupt his spark. And also you might be saying, oh, what about Primus? Didn't he get Dark Energon into the core? And well, yeah, I mean, Primus is a god, it's a different thing with him, and also the aligned continuity is not exactly fit very well, so I'm not taking the War for Cybertron games into account. I'm just looking at Transformers Prime, the show itself. Now, what does this mean for our good old friend Cliffjumper? Well, as you might have guessed, it is quite possible that he is now stuck in hell, fighting Terrorcons or being tortured by Unicron for the rest of the existence. Which, holy crap, this guy can catch a break. I swear, guys. Hasbro has screwed him over in so many ways, but I think this is the worst way he has been screwed over. At the beginning, I didn't believe this theory. I was like, oh, that's a neat theory, just for fun. But the more I'm looking into it, I'm like, this could actually be true, and this is actually very sad. This also means that characters like Skyquake, the Autobots and the Decepticons that were revived by Megatron are, basically doomed to roam Unicron's, underworld for the rest of eternity. And this also applies to Megatron and Starscream because they both reached symbiosis with Dark Energon, meaning that their souls, kinda got corrupted by it. And if they die, then their souls shouldn't be able to join the Allspark. I do like the idea of, Cliffjumper teaming up with Skyquake to fight their way out of hell, Doomslayer style, and Cliffjumper becoming an absolute badass while being stuck in there. I think that's a really cool idea. I know as soon as we get a new, Transformers continuity, we all know Cliffjumper's gonna die. Hasbro has made that a joke, Hasbro has made that a trend, and I feel like making Cliffjumper an absolute badass in the afterlife will be a very fun spin on the character. Instead of just, relegating him to the guy who always gets killed, now he can be like the guy who goes on the afterlife, yes, slaying Terrorcons, trying to make his way back to the land of the living, alongside his best buddies, Skyquake and Megatron, as soon as he dies, though I don't think the two of them will get along. And much less if Starscream's there. But hey, beggars can be choosers, so Cliffjumper teaming up with Skyquake is just, I don't know, I feel like that's a very funny image, so that's why I made this thumbnail. Because I was like, there's something here, it's dumb and weird, but it's cool. And that's the whole reason why I wanted to make this video and drew this amazing thumbnail for you guys. But yeah, guys, that is the story behind Cliffjumper's eternal struggle to get out of hell Hopefully this video doesn't get demonetized for me using the, HE double hockey sticks word. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Don't forget to check out my latest video. Me and Trans TVs did a collab. In case you haven't already, it's a lot of fun. We talk about all the ways movie Megatron could have won in the movies. Do consider becoming a channel member if that's something that interests you. And suggest what other type of videos you guys would like to see while we wait for more Rise of the Beast news. Anyways guys, that's it for this video. Hopefully you'll enjoy, like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Also, can we get some Cliffjumper as the Doomslayer fan art in the Discord server? Please? Anyways, bye guys. Anyways guys, before we go, shout out to our amazing Patreons: Xavier the God, Stitch Productions, Scrub Lordo, Allspark Studios, and Epic Nick. And an even bigger shout out to our even bigger Patreons: Gerald the Great, who donated $100, and X23, who donated an amount of money. I'll leave you guys to figure out how much. Thank you guys for supporting me, it's much appreciated. And if you guys want to become a patron yourselves, all you gotta do is donate to my Patreon. By donating to my Patreon, you get quite a few rewards. You get a free shout out to your YouTube channel and a link to it in the description down below. You can request your own videos, you get to see videos early, you can request some artwork too if you donate high enough, or you can collab with me in some of my videos or your videos, vice versa. Scrub Lord. Thank you guys for donating, it's much appreciated. Go check out their channels, link to that is gonna be in the description down below. So feel free to donate. But remember that this is entirely optional because freedom is the right of all sentient beings. Anyways, thank you guys for donating, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.